You so much for taking time out of your day today to join us for our really partner masterclass on expanding access and demonstrating impact. This is something we have put together exclusively for our partner community, and it's really our chance to come together and share what we're seeing across campuses and help you get even more value out of your BetterMynd partnership. Really, what this hour is about sharpening your partnership with us and find out what's working, what's shifting, and how we can collectively reach more students who so often fall through the cracks. Equally important, this is a space to really learn from each other. Every year, our strongest insights come directly from the partners who are living this work every day. For those who I haven't met before, my name is Rory Quinones, and I'm an Assistant Director of Campus Success here at BetterMynd. And I really do have the privilege of supporting many of the campuses that are actually here today. So really this gathering means a lot to me because I get to see firsthand how committed you all are in supporting your students and how much care goes into the decisions you make. My hope today is that you walk away with some practical tools, some clearer stories to communicate impact, and the reassurance that there's an entire community behind you, working through the same challenges and unlocking the same breakthroughs that you are. So kind of a quick overview of what you can expect from today. From Cody, you'll hear kind of a look back at 2025, the story behind our growth, what the data is revealing about student needs, and how partners like you help some students access care that they might not have pursued otherwise. Then we'll move to Western Carolina University, where you'll see what integration really looks like when a campus embeds BetterMynd into its ecosystem, and the practical steps that help them turn awareness into meaningful utilization. Next, we'll go to Mount St. Mary's, where you'll hear how they're using BetterMynd's data to define success, communicate ROI, and reach students who traditionally don't show up in campus engagement metrics. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we'll break out into small groups, and this will really be your chance to connect with one another, talk about real strategies with other institutions, and really, our hope from that is that you have one new connection and hopefully one actionable idea that you can go ahead and take back to your team. And with that, I'll kick it over to Cody. And for this, we really want to zoom out and look at the year from our collective vantage point, the trends we've seen across campuses, what students are telling us, and the impact that you all have helped unlock. Cody spent a lot of time this year listening to partners, reviewing the data, and thinking about what it all means for where we're heading together. His reflections set the stage for everything we're going to actually talk about today. So with that, Cody, our CEO and founder, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rory. And hello, everyone. It is great to be with you all today. Before we jump in, I really just wanted to begin with a heartfelt thank you for joining us today. To all of our partners, whether this was your first year with BetterMynd or you've been alongside us for 5 years or more, really just want to thank you for your trust, your collaboration, and your belief in our mission at BetterMinds. Because our work really is not something, we do for campuses, but it's something that we build together with you. And we're deeply grateful for the opportunity to just be a small part in supporting your students to succeed and thrive. BetterMind started in 2017 really as a small idea that if we could remove even one barrier between a student and the support they need, that we could change lives. And today, this idea has grown into a nationwide collective that spans over 175 different campuses across the country, from large state flagships to community colleges to private and rural institutions. And this collective is really built on a shared belief that every student who's struggling with their mental health deserves an accessible pathway to care that meets them where they are and their real life circumstances. And when we look into our data, we see more than numbers. We see stories. Every student, served this past year represents a student who took a moment of courage or overcame a barrier, took a step towards becoming more resilient, or, just reaching out to ask for help. And in 2025, we saw more of those moments than ever. Together, we delivered over 30,000 therapy sessions on our platform to 10,000 different students across our 175 campuses. And students rated their BetterMynd experience on average a 9.4 out of 10. So that's really only part of the picture. But this year we also, hosted hundreds of mental health and well-being workshops and supported hundreds of calls through our 24/7 support line as well, giving students immediate access to support in moments of stress, crisis, or uncertainty. From early on, looking at some of the data here, one of our most important metrics has been utilization. Usage that means students feel safe enough and supported enough to reach out and that barriers are being removed. This year, we, wanted to really dive deeper into usage and the impact of that usage on students. So we surveyed students who completed at least one session during the 2024 to 2025 academic year. And here's what they told us, that BetterMind helped them manage their stress and anxiety, help them feel more hopeful, help them stay engaged academically. And 42% of students said BetterMind helped them stay enrolled in school. And I think, when we looked at this data from the survey, we also surfaced something that's hard to ignore, that barriers students face accessing care remain incredibly real. Scheduling conflicts, stigma, not having transportation, not knowing where to begin, feeling overwhelmed or just undeserving of help. And that's where the idea of this hidden student comes in, with students who need help but are not showing up and struggling quietly or navigating barriers that don't always appear in our metrics. So if we jump to the next slide, I think one statistic that really stands out is that 73% of students said they would have done nothing or not known where to turn if they didn't have access to BetterMind. That's over half of students using our services. So this work really isn't about just convenience, it's about access, safety, and the possibility. And for me, this really is a deeply personal, mission and statistic, because I was one of those hidden students when I was a college student, more than 10 years ago. So if we jump to the next slide, we've got some other information here that relates to, nationwide statistics that show the reasons students are not showing up to care and the reasons they need support. But we can jump to the next slide because I think I talked about that a little bit. One of the other notable sort of changes and updates we made this year was to bring on an online psychiatry option for our campuses and for our students. One thing we had constantly heard throughout the year that was, one of the biggest challenges was serving students who need psychiatric support. So this past fall, we did launch our partnership with Lavender to bring high quality telepsychiatry directly into our ecosystem at BetterMind, and it's now available to campuses in almost all 50 states. So students can now quickly access evaluations and medication support, through a platform they already trust, meaning more coordinated care, and for students, a pathway to treatment that they may not pursue otherwise. Ultimately, just helping bring even more students, into the light. But looking ahead, sort of as we close out here, one of our focuses continues to be expanding our access pathways to care for students, deepening coordinated care, and improving measurement-based outcomes, ultimately building alongside you, guided by your feedback and your students' needs. And one more sort of teaser and note, because we're really excited about this. But next week we'll officially announce a new partnership that will be available in early 2026 to help actually strengthen this evidence-based care behind our services, improve visibility for campuses, and deepen our understanding of student needs. So we can't wait to share more next week. But again, just to close, thank you to all of our partners again, for your trust in us, for creating environments on your campuses where students feel safe and supported. And thank you for helping students who might otherwise remain hidden. The collective we've built together is really changing lives, and grateful to be on this journey with you and excited for what the year ahead brings. So thank you all, and back to you, Rory.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cody. Uh, That was really amazing information to kind of see and learn on our end. And again, without all of the collaboration and hard work that you do on your end, we wouldn't be able to find that information and kind of find those hidden students. So, really, to me, when you put all this together, the students served, the sessions delivered, the survey insights, and the national context, the hidden student, one thing becomes really clear that your partnership is what makes this impact possible. You're the ones expanding access, reducing stigma, and reaching students who otherwise wouldn't have sought help. You're improving the conditions for persistence, academic success, and student well-being. So today we want to go ahead and shine a light on some of the incredible work happening at our partner campuses. These are real lived examples. And two of those campuses, Western Carolina University and Mount St. Mary's, have powerful stories about integration, impact, and ROI. So, as I said before, these insights are really going to ground why we're here and what we're talking about. Our first spotlight comes from Western Carolina University, who I actually have the privilege of working with, a campus that has really taken a very intentional approach to embedding BetterMynd across their campus ecosystem. Their story is actually full of a lot of practical steps and partnership building that other campuses I know tell us they want more of. So Kim, Caroline, and Kalista, we're excited to hear how your team kind of approached integration in action. And here is just for everyone kind of a broad strokes look at Western Carolina University, kind of who they are, what their campus looks like. They have a full counseling center on campus. So we really came in to, again, to kind of support and offload some of those students who maybe were never going to come in, but also supporting, after hours, weekends, things like that. But really, at this point, kind of want to turn to the conversation with Western Carolina University. And I think we're going to have that team join the screen here in a hot second. Or I guess I can just jump right in and hopefully I think they'll show for
We
you.
can see them. You may not be able to see them.
Oh, okay. That's it. That's it. Thank you so much. Um, okay, so I'll start things off with Kim. Was there a moment when you felt the campus really connected the dots and began to see BetterMynd as part of your actual broader well-being strategy rather than just an add-on?
Absolutely. So, hello, all y'all. My name is Kim, she, her pronouns, Associate Vice Chancellor at Western Carolina University. And I will just say, kind of a little background about our partnership really kind of grew out of our understanding of the need for our students post Hurricane Helene. So, we were really trying to plan ahead of how we could expand services and how we could support students, not just in the immediate aftermath, but knowing how the delayed impacts of trauma. So we were trying to really think ahead. And so I would say at the beginning of the fall semester, we had a lot of planning that happened in the spring semester where we were beginning to talk about BetterMynd as our partner. But at the beginning of the semester in September, we had some very intentional processes put in place, such as I oversee the early intervention team. We call it SCIRT, Student Concern Response Team. So I had BetterMynd as a part of the outreach letters that got sent to students. I heard members of our student concern response team who do kind of active case management talking about BetterMynds with their students. I heard professors starting to mention it in their classrooms and other staff on campus who were highlighting the importance of BetterMynd as a resource for students. So I think in those moments, like when we came back in that fall semester, and you all know how early fall semester is for launching counseling services, it's just the whole community knowing we wanted to continue to support students really kind of, I guess, leaned in. And I heard it being talked about a lot. So that was to me the moment where it all came together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I mean, it's really amazing to see, when we have schools that have that integration possible, where we actually see faculty, staff, students, sharing the resources rather than just kind of like, oh, I know about this, I'm not going to bring it up. Really elevating the whole, which I think is so huge and speaks really highly of your students and your whole team. With that, we'll switch to for Caroline, kind of some of the entities that Kim mentioned. Really, then from your clinical vantage point, where did you see the strongest cross-campus alignment between student affairs, faculty, the student concern response team, and advising staff? Where did that integration actually start to click?
Yeah, so I think the student concern response team, which we call lovingly SCIRT, is where it really started to click because that team is made up of leadership of a lot of our partners. So residential living is in there, health services is in there, the dean of students office is in there. There are several others that are really integral to spreading information to students, and their buy-in helped spread to the staff that they support, which I think helped move the information to students in a way that felt like, oh, this is a legitimate resource that I can access and that maybe I should be excited about. And then I think health services, like after the student concern response team, but health services really were co-located with them. They were really excited about the opportunity, and we were able to have a lot of really meaningful conversations with them at the beginning of the year to talk about what the differences were and how they could get some student buy-in around this process and BetterMynd support. And then they put flyers up in all of their offices, and I think that that was also super helpful.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's amazing again to see and hear. And speaking of flyers, that kind of actually really cues up the next kind of slide in question really well. Callista, you created, speaking of flyers again, printed and digital materials tailored specifically for different campus partners, faculty, housing, EIT, advising. What did that tailoring look like, and why was it so important for this integration?
Yeah, so something that I really appreciated about BetterMynd's partnership from the beginning is that y'all's team really supported our empowerment to know what BetterMynd is, how it can be a resource to students, and got us really excited about this resource. And so it was actually really easy to take materials and conversations that I had had with all of you and turn them into materials that could be responsive to the questions we were receiving from students and campus partners. Namely, what is BetterMynd? How is it different from CAPS, our counseling center here? What can it offer me? Which is the right fit in terms of services? And so in terms of tailoring, kind of took a variety of different materials and conversations that I'd been having with the BetterMynd team and with our team here on campus, turned it into a kind of an easy format to read and see for whether it's handout supplies or digital supplies for our campus partners, and tailored it also to different types of formatting. So for example, our residential living team is heavy on Snapchat. That's a primary way that they communicate with our students in a lot of really cool ways. So made sure that any graphics that I made were tailored to a Snapchat format or Instagram or flyers or different TVs in our campus partners' offices. So really trying to keep consistent messaging, but a variety of different ways of presenting that information so that it could be bite-sized, easy to understand. Anybody on this campus could feel empowered to talk about it in the same way that BetterMynd's done for us.
That's amazing. I mean, I think, the idea of, like you said, the same message, the same information, but meeting anyone where they're at, whatever platform, whatever medium that they were interacting with, it sounds like you found a way to bring that information about, again, all of the services that are possible for them to them, which, again, I think just speaks so highly of the intentionality behind the work that you all do. I know you've each mentioned that in your conversations with campus partners, it was key to help them better understand that BetterMynd was a critical resource, not just for the students, but actually for themselves and for your team. So with that kind of in mind, how do you frame this work in a way that builds buy-in and helps partners understand where BetterMynd fits in their overall mental health strategy? It's a question for all three of you. Low pressure, and who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. So I think part of how we framed this is that BetterMynd is an extension of CAPS. CAPS has our counseling center has a really strong relationship with our campus partners. It's something that Kim has worked really hard on. So with those partnerships, us saying, this is something we're excited about, I think went a long way. And then this graphic offering information about how they can talk about these things, the differences between us to students has gone a long way. And then also they know that we are swamped all the time. And so having the availability, I know I've spoken with a lot of campus partners who have shared that like it feels really exciting to be able to offer something to students that is accessible while not continuing to place the burden or additional stressors on like our office, which is fairly small.
Yeah, I would
And
agree. Oh, go ahead.
now we're all excited. Go
I
ahead.
know, right? I was just going to say, I agree with that transparency piece. I think we've always been very transparent communicators with our campus partners about how our team is doing, the pulse of the campus that we're learning from a mental health standpoint, and how they can be responsive to that. I would also add that I think offering really specific stories, I guess you could say, has been a really helpful part in communicating the critical nature of BetterMynd being a part of our environment, a part of our ecosystem. So for example, we've received feedback from various departments like nursing and engineering, various majors that are very taxing and really challenging to receive mental health support because of the limitations of our hours and things like that, or students who are doing field placements for teaching or education. So really connecting with those people in particular. I remember at kind of our onboarding and our orientations at the beginning of the year, speaking heavily to those faculty and saying like, hey, we have a really cool resource that we specifically have been thinking of your students that we can't meet their need in the way that they're available for, and things like that. And so I think tending to those very specific situations has also like kind of spread a little bit like wildfire of kind of the critical nature of this partnership.
That makes sense. Thank you. Kim, anything else?
No, I was just going to say one of the things I really love about the communication patterns that we're talking about here, are they just align with our trauma-informed care approach, that where we emphasize transparency, we emphasize choice, we emphasize kind of the trust. And I think all of this, just keeping those principles in mind, have helped us communicate about what BetterMynd offers for our staff and our students in ways that align with our values.
Awesome. That's huge. Thank you. And I know one other small question, and this really just came up from our conversations as we prepped for this call. I think it's just a really important kind of call out, is that Caroline, I know you mentioned you trained and empowered a lot of your front desk and student-facing teams to kind of really digest this information so that they were able to present multiple mental health pathways that put students in the driver's seat. How did you go about kind of training and empowering both, again, the front desk staff and the student-facing teams with that?
Yeah. So we've basically created a couple of really flexible scripts. And we've made sure to kind of touch base with them frequently throughout the semester and talk to them at the beginning about, okay, this is what BetterMynd is. Here's this beautiful handout that Calista has created that will help you talk about what the needs are. Then we've kind of workshopped, how do you talk to students about it in a way that sounds really appealing to them when they call here. And it helps that we have a same-day service every day. That is kind of our intake process. And so we have available appointments every day for that, and we do fill up those appointments. And so by noon, front desk might say, hey, I cannot schedule you an appointment today, but let me tell you about BetterMynd. And that has been super helpful for us for the year.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much again for being a part of this conversation and really sharing what has worked well for you all and really outlining the power of having those connections on campus. And again, just by elevating, we kind of elevating the whole and making sure that everyone ultimately feels hopefully a little bit lighter by taking on that support across the board. Awesome. And kind of with that, I think those all were such thoughtful examples, as I mentioned, of how integration becomes real on the ground and how that can actually come to be. What stands out every time is how, again, like I mentioned, shared responsibility and cross-campus alignment can truly help shape student success. Our next spotlight picks up kind of from a different angle. Once a partnership is in place, how do you define success? How do you communicate impact and ROI in a way that resonates with leadership? Mount St. Mary's University has been incredibly intentional about this. Adrienne has built a framework that helps her distinguish partnership, impact, and ROI, and then uses data to tell a very clear story about her students' needs. Adrienne, again, thank you so much for taking time to join us and being a part of this conversation today. We're so grateful that you're here.
Well, I am very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, again, this is kind of a quick vignette of Mount St. Mary's, who they are, kind of how they came to be with BetterMynd. But one of the things I want to spend some time talking about, because I mean, this was really for me personally in viewing the work we do, but really kind of outlining this for partners. This was such a very clear way to demonstrate value for everyone involved. So I know you shared in the prep calls with BetterMynd that partnership, impact, and ROI are three very different things. Can you walk us through how you distinguish them and why that framing mattered in your early conversations with BetterMynd?
Yeah, this is such a great question because when we were originally talking about ROI, I couldn't just break it down into one category because I think there are several data points that contribute to the overall ROI of this initiative. And so I had broken it into student impact, the institutional ROI, and how we talk about success within the Mount community, and then what our partnership really looks like with BetterMynd, because I feel like each one of those areas has different metrics for success. So for student impact, one of the things that I noticed, I've been at the Mount for a year and a half, and one of the things that I noticed about our counseling services, which sits under my portfolio in student life, is that we have 3 counselors. We are not available for counseling services over break. Our counselors are on 10-month contracts. And so there's a real need to provide some kind of supplementary service for our students in what could be very high stress situations when students go home for Thanksgiving, but they might not have a strong relationship with their families at home and might need to talk about how to navigate that experience as an example. We also faced early on last fall, we faced student death on campus. And so when I would go onto the Yik Yak is very popular here at the Mount, and it's really funny to watch students like learn that the dean of students is on Yik Yak and can see everything that they're posting. But one of the things that I was noticing was that students kept talking about wanting to use counseling services, they're reaching out for help through Yik Yak, but they didn't want their students, their friends to know that they were using counseling. They didn't want them to literally watch them walk into the building of Laura McGowan to talk to a counselor. And so mental health support has always been a priority of mine, but I feel like it just became even more of a priority because our students really needed an outlet. And so when we look at student success, we're looking at, this is not only affecting our campus community, but now it's also affecting retention as well. So when you look at success, I think student impact is a unique category of its own. Mm-hmm. When we're thinking about institutional return on investment, how am I articulating the student impact and the importance of the partnership to the president, right? I report directly to the president of the university. And so I need to be able to articulate why this is important and what this can do for the Mount St. Mary's community as a whole, and not just in the here and the now, but over time as well. And so having the data that my counseling services team has collected, we saw the most student appointments in history last year. That already sets us up for, a reason that we need an additional support. But for the Mount, it's how do we sustain that? It's not sustainable. We need something extra. And so telling the student stories, but also having the hard data. So using that mixed method, form of communication with our president has been extremely helpful. And then in terms of partnership, I enter into a lot of partnerships, as I think we all do as the nature of our roles. And so you want to make the right decision for your institution. When my team met with BetterMynd originally, one of the things that I had expressed concerns about was the level of clinicians in the state of Maryland that BetterMynd was partnering with. I didn't feel like there was enough support to meet the needs of our students, right? And what we needed at the Mount. And so this was early, I think late last fall. And so as we're having these conversations, I want to say late in the spring semester, we kind of re-engage these conversations, and BetterMynd's already adding clinicians to the state of Maryland, right? Like, so a lot of the concerns I had expressed 6 months prior were already being addressed, and that doesn't usually happen or that quickly with other vendors and partners that you have. And so for me, and for Gerald Ruth, he's our executive director of counseling services, he was really the driver in making this happen. That was extremely important because they heard what we had to say and they were doing something about it. And because, we had established such a great partnership, one of the things that I'm sure we all face is, limited budgets that we have. So we were really facing a little bit of a budget crisis at the end of the spring semester. And then I was like, I don't even know if we can move forward with the BetterMynd platform because of cost. We told that to Doug, who I think is on the call, told that to Doug, and Doug brought back a really hard to pass up opportunity for the Mount. But I'm grateful for that because we've been able to use the partnership, the impact, and the institutional ROI to then continue and add services since we signed our contract over the summer. So that is why when I was originally asked that question, I couldn't just talk about ROI as a whole. I really needed to break it down because I think this is really about how we're telling the full story of not just the student experience, but the institutional and the staff experience as well.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. And I think, especially when it comes to data, there's so many different types of data and the quality of data. So the idea of really breaking it down that way and combining the stories behind the student experience, quantifying those with actual data and insights you're getting from the dashboard, again, I think you're able to paint a picture again to leadership that is more than just numbers. There's actual humanity behind those numbers. And I think that goes such a long way. I know you talked quite a bit about kind of the data and how that was used. But one thing that kind of came up in our conversations, how has BetterMynd helped you reach the hidden student on your campus and the students who aren't typically showing up in your traditional engagement metrics?
Yeah. So I think this is such a great question and such an important response because we have, I feel like sometimes there's this idea that when you enter into a partnership with a mental health and well-being support platform, that it's replacing, counselors on campus, and it's quite the opposite. It's helping, and I think Kim and her team really articulated it well with how they see it as an extension of their CAPS, but it's really how is it contributing to the greater good of the student body and the Mount community? We have quite a few students who do not use in-person counseling, and we've been able to reach new students within this new paradigm, which is really exciting, that our students who wouldn't normally walk through the doors of our counseling services are actually utilizing not only the individual counseling sessions, but they're also utilizing the well-being workshops as well, which I was surprised by. And we have a lot of repeat customers, repeat students going to the well-being workshops, which we, open up for free for all of our students. And I was very surprised on how much our students are really taking advantage of those opportunities. And Gerald can see the students that are showing up in person, and you can see the students that are showing up on the platform. When you look at some of our demographics, at the Mount, we are a 50-50 students of color on our campus. So for being in a rural setting, we also have a high number of student athletes on our campus. We're a D1 institution. And we have 3 counselors who are all white people, right? And so there is a real need to provide additional support. We might not be able to pay a full-time counselor to come, but BetterMynd has those relationships with other clinicians that come from diverse backgrounds. And it's not even just around race or gender, it's faith, right? There's identity. I mean, there's so many different levels of identities that our students are relating to and experience. And being able to offer that support is incredibly important to their success as students and just their overall well-being. And so I feel like the platform has really opened up a whole new support for our students. I'll also say it's opened up a whole new level of support for our staff as well. They have this time last year, Gerald would say his team was stressed out. They were trying to fit in every single student that they could, or they would have to move students out of counseling sooner than maybe they're ready so they can enter in some new students. And it was always such a difficult balance. And having this as another option for our students has also made life a lot more manageable for our counselors as well. So I thought that would be another important thing to point out.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, again, I think sometimes when we begin partnerships with institutions, there can be that idea that BetterMynd's going to come in and your counselors are going to be, having all this time back because BetterMynd's going to take over. And really what I hear time and time again is, no, we're actually just supporting you reaching more students and actually making sure, hopefully, that your staff doesn't feel the weight of a giant wait list, trying, like you said, to make sure every student is seen because that's so important. I always kind of view my role as we want to save you time to give back to your students. So let us, let BetterMynd come in where they can and support the students who maybe, like you said, weren't going to step into the office, weren't going to raise their hand. I know you've talked about how valuable it is to use both the hard numbers and the qualitative kind of why behind them. So how do you use BetterMynd data when you're communicating impact and the ROI to your senior leadership?
Yeah, I think the easiest way at this point is, we need to purchase more sessions in November because we're 75% away from finishing our sessions. I think that was the easiest data point. I mean, when we were trying to figure out how our students were going to use this, right? We're still new in this space. We started our partnership in August of this year, but we started with 100 sessions. And so for Gerald to have conversations with Emily a couple of weeks ago and noting that we're almost out of sessions already, that's really showing the need that anecdotally I thought we needed last year, but now I also have the hard data to show it as well. And so we have added additional sessions, which will hopefully get us through the summer and the spring semester. But one of the things I really like about BetterMynd is that the sessions roll over, right? The sessions are flexible for our students. So even though every student is able to get at least one session, we have no limit set for our students, whereas some other platforms do have, certain number of sessions that students can have, and that's it. But then you have all these other sessions that are being wasted. And so in terms of when your resources are strapped on campus, I think knowing you have that flexibility is extremely important information to tell senior leadership, is that it's not just for this year, right? If we don't happen to use all the sessions, even though we're buying more, these will roll over into next year and we won't need to buy as many continually. So when you're thinking if you're a resourced strapped institution, I think that is one angle to utilize. The other thing that we noticed this semester is that our students that were studying abroad are starting to see higher mental health issues with our students studying abroad. And Gerald chatted with Emily on what options do we have for our students. And so we ended up also purchasing. See, the discount really came in handy with BetterMynd. They made out with Mount St. Mary's. But they ended up purchasing the 24/7 crisis line. but just for our international students that are studying abroad, so that they have those resources as well. So really, I think the Mount is making accessibility to mental health services, reducing stigma around it, part of our identity and part of our brand, because we've been able to utilize the data and student stories. And there's a lot of power in student stories. But I also think there's a lot of power in students telling their stories as well. And so our students have also been vocal in sharing their experiences with this, and the need for the Mount to get on board the well-being bandwagon, which we 100% are, but I think it's now becoming part of the culture. And a lot of that is just utilizing the tools that we're given to be able to do that.
Awesome. No, that's so great. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, it is so helpful when regularly you're able to hear that feedback from students, to really reinforce, okay, we made the right choice. Like we're hearing like chatter in any way about it, which is so powerful.
Yeah.
I know at this point we're actually going to move into small groups just so I can make sure that everyone has a chance to, again, kind of connect with one another. So Adrian, thank you so much for, again, being a part of this conversation and really showing us that data and narrative together can create a powerful story for everyone involved.